It's no question that Florida has been one of the most popular states to retire in, but in recent years, we have seen a large influx of retirees here in Georgia, and we are usually dubbed as the #2 best state to retire in. So what are the differences between retiring in Georgia and Florida, and which one should you consider? Hi, I'm Sarah Maslowski, a local real estate agent here in the Northeast Metro Atlanta area, and I specialize in helping people from all over the country relocate right here to Georgia. I've helped clients sell their house here in Georgia so they could retire in Florida, and I've helped people from Florida buy homes here in Georgia. So I've seen people choose both sides. So how are they different? One of the biggest differences between retiring in these two states are the taxes and cost of living. Bankrate made a ranking of best and worst states to retire in, and they ranked Georgia as the 7th most affordable state to live in, while Florida came in surprisingly at number 18. Florida does not have any senior tax exemptions, and Georgia does. However, Georgia has income taxes and Florida doesn't. In some counties in Georgia, once you reach a certain age, usually 62 or 65, you are exempt from paying the full portion on your property taxes, which makes a huge portion of your tax bill each year. Now, this does vary from county to county, and some have better exemption rates than others. So if this is one of your reasons for considering Georgia, we can get together and go over which counties are going to have the very best senior tax break. Now, there are some counties like Jackson County that doesn't offer tax breaks for seniors at all, and some have partial exemptions, and others have total exemptions from the school portion of your property tax bill, like Forsyth County. We can help guide you through which counties offer the best tax breaks if you aren't set on a certain location already. Florida doesn't have income taxes, and here in Georgia, your income is taxed on a progressive scale, ranging from 1% to 5.75% based on your income level. Something that you are going to have to account for with living in Florida is much higher homeowners insurance and flood insurance. The cost of homes in these two states are, of course, going to vary greatly. Naturally, if you have a beachfront property in Florida, that's going to come with a much steeper price tag than a home, say, here in the middle of Georgia. But if you're considering a home in Alpharetta, for example, that is also going to come with a much higher price tag than many parts of Central Florida. If you want to live on the water and choose to do that here on a lake here in Georgia, you are going to find that living on Lake Lanier is going to be pretty comparative to, price-wise to what that's like living on a beach in Florida. If you choose another lake in Georgia like Hartwell or Lake Burton, you will definitely have some more affordable options on those lakes when comparing that to beachfront property. Between the addition of flood insurance, higher homeowners insurance, and because of natural disasters, the cost of living in Georgia is lower compared to Florida. Now, speaking of natural disasters, something you might want to consider when deciding where to retire is the weather. Of course, one of the big reasons people are drawn to the South, especially if they're coming from a northern state, is the warmer weather. Something that Floridians have to deal with every year is hurricanes and tropical storms, which are so rare here in North Georgia. We've helped so many families leave Florida because they just couldn't deal with the thought of a hurricane coming through and destroying everything they own again. People also want to experience all 4 seasons and not just heat and humidity all year long. The great thing about Georgia is that we do get a taste of all 4 seasons, especially here in North Georgia, and the weather here is rather mild. You don't have to worry about snow and extreme cold, and we usually experience 1 snow day a year, but this previous winter was the first time in many years that we didn't get any at all. We did, however, get down to 29 degrees the week of Christmas, and that was pretty crazy. We don't typically have such extreme cold, and we are usually a pretty mild state. Now, if you absolutely hate any kind of cold, you might want to consider Florida. But if you like a quick break from the heat, maybe Georgia would be better for you. Trust me though, there is no shortage of hot summers. We aren't going to get to like the hundreds like Texas and Louisiana and how some parts of Florida can get, but we are going to have high 80s and low 90s in the peak summer months and lots of humidity. Because of the the humidity, we do get quite a bit of rain, which is surprising to some people who are coming from different states. We get a lot of people who move to Georgia from Florida that ask whether or not the house is in a flood zone when they are searching for a home here. It is extremely uncommon to find a house here in North Georgia in a flood zone because of the higher elevation. People will also ask about lake homes here on Lake Lanier and ask if there's any history of flooding, and this is also something that will in fact never flood because the water levels are controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers with dams, so this is not something that happens. One of the great things about both Georgia and Florida is that they are both great states to be in to stay outside and stay active. Of course, Florida has hundreds of miles of shoreline for fishing and boating and spending time on the beach. Now, there are plenty of state parks and nature preserves to hike or camp on if you decide to take up camping or RVing, which is something many retirees do with their newfound spare time. You're not going to find as much beach access here in Georgia, and obviously as you would compared to Florida, but you will have a little bit more diversity in the landscape. You can go down to the coast and access the beach, or you can go up to the Blue Ridge Mountains for a completely different experience. You can also spend time on one of Georgia's many lakes, which are surrounded by parks and campgrounds as well. Some might argue that you will be able to spend more time outside year-round in Florida than you would in Georgia, but you are going to have more options in scenery in Georgia, and I would argue that being outside here in Georgia year-round, the weather is better. It's not as hot as it is in Florida, and it's much more enjoyable to be outside. Regardless of what state you choose, though, you're going to be able to be outside and enjoy beautiful nature and stay active in both states. Something that we are finding more and more common is people who are choosing to retire. They don't want to be in 55+ communities, but they would rather be in a smaller neighborhood or in homes with no HOA at all. I recently made a video discussing all of the reasons I have heard from people about why you should avoid living in a 55+ community. So make sure you go check that video out if you are on the fence about living in one of those communities. You will find a lot more of those huge master plan communities in Florida and more retirement communities in Florida as well. We do, of course, have 55+ communities here in Georgia, and we have big neighborhoods with lots of amenities, but they are a bit of a different setup than these massive master plan communities that you find down in Florida. They're essentially kind of like their own small town. If you're looking for a smaller community with amenities and lower HOA fees, we have plenty of those here. You will either have to do your own yard work or pay someone to do that separately. It's not going to be covered in your HOA fee. And based on stories of clients who have relocated from Florida, I think it's fair to say you will find many HOAs here to be much more relaxed than those in Florida. And another massive difference that we've heard from clients is the difference in the price. Here in North Georgia, if you live in a community with a price point of around $300,000 to $500,000, you can typically expect to pay somewhere between $500 and $750 a year in HOA fee. Of course, if you are going into a gated community or a country club, you can expect to pay significantly more than that, closer to several thousands of dollars a year. Recently, we had a Florida resident comment on a video that the cost of the HOA fees in Georgia for an entire year was the same cost of the HOA fee there for a month. Now, of course, this depends on the area and type of community, but it is definitely possible, especially if you're living in a 55+ or retirement community in Florida. You are used to some extremely high fees. So what do you think? Would you rather retire here in Georgia, or does Florida seem like a better option for you? If Georgia ends up being your first choice, make sure you reach out and give me a call. I would love to be your real estate agent or get you in touch with someone who can help if it's an area I don't serve. And if you haven't checked out this video before moving to Georgia, you have to watch it.